Welcome to Old School Sundays. This is your host, Odell. Let's get into some history. The sky above Three Rivers Stadium was a bruise colored mix of smoke and rain. It was 1974, and the Pittsburgh Steelers, a team built on grit, defense, and steel town toughness, were about to make history. Inside the locker room, cigarette smoke curled through the air. The media crowded around a sheet of paper pinned to the wall, the depth chart. At the top, quarterback Joe Gilliam. Below him, Terry Bradshaw. The room was silent. The unthinkable had happened. A black quarterback from Tennessee State University had just beaten out a Super Bowl champion and the franchise's golden boy. Jefferson Street Joe, smooth, confident, fearless, had taken the job that no one ever thought a black man could hold. And for a moment, it felt like football had changed forever. But behind the applause was unease. Behind the headlines was resentment. And behind every camouflage was a system that wasn't ready to see a black man lead America's team of destiny. What really happened inside that locker room? How did the quarterback who beat Terry Bradshaw end up losing everything? Because this isn't just the story of a player, it's the story of a league that celebrated him on Sunday and buried him by Monday. Before he was the man who challenged Terry Bradshaw, Joe Gilliam was the Prince of Jefferson Street, the heart of Nashville's black college scene where rhythm, swagger, and soul collided every Saturday night. He played for Tennessee State University, the same HBCU that produced Elridge Dickey. And like Dickey, Joe wasn't just talented, he was electric. At TSU, he threw for more than 5,200 yards and 50 touchdowns, commanding the field with a cannon arm and surgical precision. His passes cut through air like poetry. He led TSU to back Black National College Championships, and by 1971, he was a legend in Black college football, a symbol that the position of quarterback could belong to anyone with the talent and intellect to lead. But Joe had something even rarer: charisma. He had a strut, a confidence that made people look twice. They called him Jefferson Street Joe, named after the lively stretch of black owned clubs and bars that defined Nashville's soul scene. He wore tailored suits to practice, sunglasses under stadium lights. His energy was contagious, and it made people love him or hate him. When the Pittsburgh Steelers drafted him in 1972, they saw a backup. But Joe saw destiny. And by 1974, he was out throwing Terry Bradshaw, outthinking defenses, and outshining everyone in camp. A man from Tennessee State, an HBCU quarterback in a league that barely let black players touch the ball, was now taking reps as QB1 for the toughest team in football. But the higher he climbed, the more enemies he made. Because in 1970s America, a confident black man under center wasn't just a threat on the field, he was a threat to the system itself. And that system was about to fight back. Summer 1974. The hottest quarterback battle in the NFL wasn't in Dallas or Miami. It was in Pittsburgh, where two men couldn't have been more different. One was Terry Bradshaw, the Louisiana Golden Boy, a first overall pick, already crowned as the franchise savior. The other was Joe Gilliam, the 11th rounder from Tennessee State, cool, cerebral, and unapologetically himself. The Steelers' coaching staff watched in disbelief as the kid from Jefferson Street outworked, outthrew, and outshined Bradshaw. In training camp, Gilliam was surgical, threading tight window passes with velocity and touch that looked effortless. Coach Chuck Noll, a man known for precision and discipline, couldn't deny what his eyes saw. He named Gilliam the starting quarterback for week one of the 1974 season. It was more than a football decision, it was a statement. For the first time in the modern NFL, a black quarterback was starting the season for a team destined for a Super Bowl run. And Gilliam wasn't playing like a caretaker, he was spectacular. In the first two games, he completed 31 of 55 passes for 458 yards, lighting up defenses with a swagger Pittsburgh hadn't seen before. The ball exploded from his hand like a fastball, and the Steelers' offense suddenly had rhythm, life, and fire. But success brought backlash. Some fans in the stands turned their cheers into jeers. Sports writers began nitpicking his every move. And in a city where change came slow, many couldn't accept that the man under center, the leader of their team, was a black quarterback commanding the spotlight. Still, Joe kept throwing, kept winning. He had no idea that behind those same locker room doors, the clock on his opportunity was already ticking down. Because when a black man outperforms the system's chosen hero, the system always finds a way to take it back. By mid-season, the fairy tale had curdled into a storm. What started as the most inspiring story in the league, a young black quarterback leading the mighty Steelers, was being quietly dismantled from the inside out. Joe Gilliam was still slinging it. He had 7 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and was throwing for nearly 200 yards per game, in an era where most teams didn't even pass that much. But the city's mood had shifted. The same reporters who once praised his arm now called him reckless. Fans who once cheered his rise began mailing hate letters to the team facility. And every mistake, every incompletion was treated as proof that he didn't belong. Behind closed doors, the whispers grew louder. Bradshaw's the future. Gilliam's getting too much attention. Pittsburgh needs its poster boy back. Even Chuck Noll, who had once stood by him, began to cave under the pressure. He started rotating quarterbacks, a move that undercut Gilliam's rhythm and confidence. But the pressure wasn't just external. Gilliam was battling something even darker: the constant, unrelenting weight of being first. He wasn't just playing football, he was representing an entire race every Sunday, carrying 350 years of history on his shoulders with every snap. And in 1970s America, that burden broke men. Under the surface, Joe's smile began to fade. His all night study sessions turned into restless nights. And somewhere between the cheers and the headlines, Payne found a crack to slip through, one that alcohol and drugs would soon exploit. The dream was fracturing. The media didn't see it yet, the fans didn't care. But inside the man they called Jefferson Street Joe, the game was already slipping away. In the fall, when it came, would be faster, crueler, and more permanent than anyone could imagine. The same city that once hailed Joe Gilliam as a pioneer now watched him unravel. By late 1974, the same reporters who put his face on magazine covers were writing him off as a distraction. His playing time evaporated, not because of skill, but because the whispers finally won. Chuck Noll benched him. Terry Bradshaw reclaimed the starting job. The message was loud and clear. The fairy tale was over. Gilliam sat in the locker room, helmet resting at his feet, watching the season he started slip away without him. The team went on to win the Super Bowl, the first championship in Steelers history. And Joe Gilliam, the quarterback who had led them there, who earned that job, was left off the field, watching from the shadows as Bradshaw hoisted the Lombardi trophy. No parade, no credit, no redemption. He was 24 years old, and his dream was already over. What followed wasn't football, it was survival. Cut from the Steelers in 1975, released again in 1976, by 1978, he was out of the league completely. The world called it wasted potential, but that phrase misses the truth. Joe Gilliam wasn't destroyed by lack of talent, he was destroyed by a system that celebrated him just long enough to prove it could take it all away. He turned to drugs to fill the silence, to numb the humiliation of watching others live the life he was promised. For years, he drifted, homeless, forgotten, sleeping under bridges just miles from where fans once screamed his name. And when people saw him, they didn't see the man who beat Terry Bradshaw, they saw another cautionary tale. Another way to say, see what happens when they get a chance, but they never asked what really broke him. Because the truth is, the NFL didn't just bench Joe Gilliam, it broke him on purpose. For nearly a decade, Joe Gilliam vanished from the spotlight. The man who once threw lasers across the Pittsburgh skyline now drifted through alleys and shelters, his name reduced to a ghost story among old fans. But even in the depths of addiction, people who met him said the spark was still there. That same sharp mind, that same quarterback's precision when he spoke about the game. He'd talk about coverages, blitz pickups, and the way safeties disguise zones as if he had still had a playbook tucked in his coat pocket. By the mid 1980s, he resurfaced, coaching youth football in Tennessee, trying to give kids what the system stole from him: opportunity. And for a time, he found peace. He got clean. He found faith. He began to rebuild. Then came 1991 when ESPN tracked him down for an interview. He spoke softly but clearly. "I don't hate Terry," he said. "I don't hate the Steelers. I just wish I could have finished what I started." There was no bitterness, just heartbreak. He knew he'd been good enough. The film didn't lie. He had outplayed Bradshaw in camp, led the team with grace, and showed the world that a black quarterback could lead a Super Bowl contender. But in America's game, being first came with a cost no one could pay twice. Gilliam lived out his later years quietly in Nashville, mentoring at risk youth, still wearing that familiar calm, that easy smile. But every so often, when the lights dimmed and the noise faded, people who knew him said you could see it. That same haunted look in his eyes. The look of a man who won the biggest battle of his life and lost everything that came after. When Joe Gilliam died in 2000 at just 49 years old, most of the sports world barely noticed. No tributes aired, no halftime montages, just a small funeral in Nashville. Quiet, solemn, filled with people who remembered the man before the headlines. But make no mistake, Joe Gilliam's fingerprints are all over the NFL, yet his name rarely appears in NFL retrospectives. Why? Because his story isn't convenient. It doesn't fit the sanitized version of progress the league likes to sell. His journey reminds us that opportunity was never given, it had to be taken. And that taken came with blood, humiliation, and loss. The Steelers' dynasty, the one that defined the 1970s, began on the back of a man they benched. The offense Gilliam installed, the rhythm he gave it, became the blueprint for their success. Bradshaw got the glory, Gilliam got erased. But history, like film, doesn't lie. Watch those 1974 games and you'll see it. The swagger, the precision, the creativity that made Pittsburgh unstoppable. That was Joe's signature. The NFL buried the man, but it kept his style. Today, every time a young black quarterback walks onto the field with confidence instead of fear, with command instead of apology, that's Joe Gilliam's legacy in motion. The league may have forgotten his name, but the game never did. Because before there was still curtain glory, there was a man from Jefferson Street who showed them how to win. The lights of Three Rivers have long gone dark. The echoes of "Here we go, Steelers" have faded into nostalgia. But somewhere in the silence of that old stadium, you can still hear it: the faint rhythm of the perfect spiral cutting through the night. That was Joe Gilliam's throw. The throw that beat out Terry Bradshaw. The throw that terrified a system not ready to see a black man leading America's team. And the throw that the NFL quietly erased when the camera stopped rolling. He never got the parade, he never got the ring, but he gave the game something it had never seen before: freedom under center. The freedom to play with flair, to lead with intelligence, to exist without permission. Without Joe Gilliam, there's no Doug Williams, there's no Warren Moon, there's no Cordell Stewart, there's no Aaron Brooks, there's no Lamar, there's no Mahomes. He was the bridge, and bridges rarely get credit. They just get walked on. Would the modern NFL exist if he hadn't taken that stand in 1974? And if the truth came out now, the truth about how the league treated him, would football ever look the same again? The story of Joe Gilliam isn't tragedy, it's prophecy. A man ahead of his time, punished for being the future too soon. This is Old School Sundays. If you remember this era or lived through the glory days, like this video and subscribe for more untold NFL legends, because in this game, history never really dies, it just waits for someone brave enough to tell it.